Baseball Hall of Fame seems designed to do two things: celebrate the biggest figures in the game's history and to generate a lot of debate, both complaints and hosannas about who should get in and who ought to be left out. And this most recent announcement certainly did that. Congratulations to former Yankee skipper Joe Torre, Braves manager Bobby Cox, both of whom were voted in yesterday by the Expansion Era Committee, Tony La Russa as well, joining them. We're going to deal with managers later on, but there is the issue about who didn't get in, and specifically Yankee owner George Steinbrenner. A lot of reasons to include Steinbrenner: 7 world championships, revolutionizing free agency, free agent spending, his use of TV rights, stadium cash to enhance the team. Also a lot of reasons, though, not to include it: convicted felon for political payoffs, over-involvement in the team, which led to a decade of floundering teams and embarrassing back pages, and hiring a gambler. Don't forget to get dirt on Dave Winfield. So should he be in or out? To answer that, we bring in our guest here, radio host Ed Randall, host of Ed Randall's Talking Baseball on WFAN and Remember When on Sirius XM Radio. And Ed joins us from the winter meetings down there in Orlando. By the way, Ed, any big news here for all these frustrated Met fans at the table? Did they add anybody today or no?
Not that I know of, no.
Familiar refrain. Okay. How would you, how do you come down on the Steinbrenner issue in terms of whether or not the credits outweigh the debits and he belongs in Cooperstown?
I think the fact that it took you 20 seconds to talk about his liabilities is reason right there to not vote for him. No question about the fact that he put an indelible imprint on baseball, spent the big money, understood that New York was the place that free agents should come to, and especially in the early days, bringing in people like Reggie Jackson and Goose Gossage helped buy the Yankees a world championship. But there is an awful lot of negativity regarding the man, and that's why he didn't get in.
But as a fan, and I am unapologetically, I was embarrassed by the 80s and all the back pages and the Billy Martins and the Ed Whitsons and all the other stuff that went along with it. But at the end of the day, under his ownership, he gave me in his second act playoffs every single year, 7 world championships, filled stadiums. He didn't put money in his pocket. He spent it on the team. In many ways, he changed baseball with the idea of the Yes networks and the regional sports channels. At the end, wasn't he better for baseball than he was bad for it?
I think on balance, that's probably true. However, he was also the steward, because of his impetuousness, of the longest streak between championships in franchise history. From 1978 to 1996, they did not win a world championship, and it was all because of his reckless behavior.
Yep. I have a question on Marvin Miller, and for the casual fan, they may not know the name, but we wouldn't have certainly the salaries without a Steinbrenner, who was really maybe leading the way on free agency, but also Marvin Miller, who fought on behalf of his union of the players to secure those kind of contracts. He's a giant in the game, and Ed, he's still not in the Hall. Can you explain that one to me?
No, I can't. And I'll say on your show what I say constantly on my show. This is egregious, an egregious omission that he's not in the Baseball Hall of Fame, that by any objective measure, if you were to name the top 3 most influential people in the history of the game, in no particular order, it would be Babe Ruth, it would be the quinella of Jackie Robinson and Branch Rickey, who brought Jackie to the major leagues, and the third person would be Marvin Miller. Wow. This is none of the riches that generations of owners have enjoyed would be possible without Marvin Miller's work. And these are small-minded people who are riven by jealousy, who were beaten by him years ago in negotiations, mind you, there was no gunplay, who feel we're going to get even with the guy and he's never going to have his rightful place in the Hall of Fame. if you're going to have a Hall of Fame, which they gratefully do in Cooperstown, New York, it is not complete until Marvin Miller is in it.
Yeah, it's myopic and petty that, given, as you said, his fingerprints and imprint on the game, he's not there. Ed, I appreciate you taking time away from the winter meetings, and I speak for these bitter Met fans. Hopefully they come away with some good news before they leave Orlando. Ed Randall, thank you so much.
Thank you, Richard.
All right, Mr. Bitter Met fan, why do you think, though, Andrew, that Steinbrenner, for all his faults, and we can find a lot of debates with a lot of people in Cooperstown right now, that for all his faults and their legion, he still didn't have, when you think about it, the impact on the game, which is what that was for, and 7 titles. That's not enough of a bio.
Because I think he had an impact, but I think it was a negative one. I think it was...
You don't think free agency would have happened without him?
No, it definitely would have happened without him, but you wouldn't have had this guy who just nakedly went out and bought championships the way that he did, especially in the late 70s, and disregarded the old-fashioned system of actually building a team and getting value for it. I mean, you could argue that George Steinbrenner's
greed... Well, you're debating style, not substance.
You could argue that George Steinbrenner's greed is one of the reasons why a hot dog cost $8 at Yankee Stadium and the ticket behind home plate cost $1,000. It's because that's the price to keep up with the spending.
Don't you think that's a little naive that you're not going to find other billionaire owners? And also, as the Met fan, would you rather have a payroll of Would you rather have a payroll of $85 million, like you're going to next year, Mr. Eden, or $185 million, and have a blowhard owner that's writing those checks?
I'd rather have a healthy Matt Harvey for next year. But I think, listen. The payroll doesn't always dictate. It doesn't always dictate championships. You look at the Oakland Athletics, even last year. Forget even the Moneyball stuff, but even last year, team Tampa Bay.
19 out of 20 years, the Yankees went to the playoffs, and a payroll had a big part to do.
I agree with you, Richard. I think he should be in the Hall of Fame. I think he's had a lasting, major impact on the game, for better or for worse. I think the players will love him because they're getting paid a hell of a lot more than they were before he started paying all these guys. And so Marvin Miller and him, both of them should be in the Hall of Fame, no question. Maybe they just didn't want to do it. I mean, you hear about first ballot Hall of Famers, second ballot Hall of Famers. McGuire is not in. Barry. I mean, maybe they're just this is a way for them. They'll let him in, but they want to not do it right away. Even though he's passed, they just don't want to do it right away.
The juice of New York, and for good or for bad. There's a lot of competition for back pages in New York. This guy owned it, even when they stunk. Not for always good reasons, but there's something to that.
I'm a huge fan of Mr. Steinbrenner. I think I would venture to say 90% of Yankee fans support Mr. Steinbrenner.
It didn't always used to be that way.
It wasn't always that way, but I think that we appreciate what he did for the city, what he did for the team. You can't buy a championship. You've got to win it on the field. That's like saying you can buy the mayor's race. It's impossible. You got to win that race.
Oh, you know,
so,
you know full well that you can buy the mayor's race,
no,
and you
cannot.
can buy a championship too.
Cannot.
It makes it much easier.
Andrew,
easier.
Ask the man to your left about Linda McMahon. Could she buy the Senate race?
No.
No. Okay. I mean, you still got to have some substance here to do
primary. You could. I mean,
but she could have bought a team.
Yeah, but you couldn't have bought a championship. So it does come with it. We're certainly going to see this thing play out in time here, but interesting, at least where the public's pulse is on this one right now.
Steinbrenner's Mr. New York,
For the
period.
record, I have never seen you guys more. I have never seen you more dynamic than when you talk about sports. You know every freaking detail.
We're going to give you an opportunity. He said freaking, by the way. We're going to give you an opportunity to talk about the handshake and whether or not some of your former colleagues are making a big hooey about nothing here. President Obama pressing the flesh of a Cuban leader, Raul Castro, in South Africa today. And because of this shake here, you'd think all hell is breaking loose as a consequence, or at least on Fox. We'll talk about that after this.